Namaste and welcome back to JEE Physics with Typical Monk. This is class 35. Work, energy, and power. Force tells us why a body accelerates. Work and energy tell us what that costs and what it buys. Work is a force acting to a displacement, but only the part of the force along the motion counts. So W equals Fd cosine theta. Do work on a body and you change its energy. The kinetic energy of motion, 1/2 mv squared, or the potential energy of position, mgh. The work energy theorem ties them together. The net work done equals the change in kinetic energy. And when only gravity and springs act, the total mechanical energy is conserved, trading potential for kinetic and back again. Power, finally, is simply how fast the work is done. Today, work, the forms of energy, conservation, and power. One idea at a time. Here is what you will master today. First, work done by a force. Second, kinetic and potential energy. Third, the work energy theorem. Fourth, conservation of energy. And fifth, power, one idea at a time. Let us set the foundation. Work, a force acting through a displacement. Energy, the capacity to do work. Power, the rate of doing work. Masterline, energy is never created or destroyed, only transformed. Now look at the picture. Work done by a force. Work, a force acting to a displacement, W equals Fd cosine theta. The component, only the part of F along D, that is F cosine theta, does work. Zero work, when the force is perpendicular to the motion. Negative work, when the force opposes the motion, like friction. Now work, precisely. The definition, W equals Fd cosine theta, force times displacement times the cosine of the angle. Positive work, force along the motion, theta less than 90 degrees. Zero work, force perpendicular to the motion, theta equals 90 degrees. Negative work, force opposes the motion, like friction. Now the forms of energy. Kinetic energy, the energy of motion, 1/2 mv squared. Potential energy, the energy of position, mgh near the earth. Elastic potential energy, stored in a stretch spring, 1/2 kLx squared. The unit, work, and energy share the joule. The work energy theorem, net work, equals the change in kinetic energy. Now look at the picture. Conservation of energy. At the top, all potential energy mgh and no kinetic energy. At the bottom, all kinetic energy 1/2 mv squared and no potential energy. The total, potential plus kinetic stays constant throughout the fall. The condition, this holds when only conservative forces act. Now the work energy theorem. The theorem, the net work done equals the change in kinetic energy. Speeding up, positive net work increases the kinetic energy. Slowing down, negative net work decreases it. Conservative forces, gravity and springs, store energy as potential energy. Total mechanical energy is conserved when only conservative forces act. Now power. The definition, power equals work over time, the rate of doing work. Also, power equals force times velocity. The unit, the watt, 1 joule per second. Now match each quantity to its formula. W equals Fd cosine theta goes to work. 1/2 mv squared goes to kinetic energy. mgh goes to potential energy. And work over time goes to power. 4 pairs, each worth memorizing. Now, how many of these statements are correct? Statement 1. A force perpendicular to the motion does zero work. Correct. Statement 2. Kinetic energy is mv squared. Wrong, it is 1/2 mv squared. Statement 3. Power is the rate of doing work. Correct. So the answer, 2 are correct. Statements 1 and 3. The chop is the factor of 1/2 in statement 2. Now, the 2 mistakes that quietly cost marks. The truth, a perpendicular force does no work, like the centripetal force. The trap, forgetting the cosine of the angle in W equals FD cosine theta. The second truth, kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, not mv squared. The second trap, mixing up energy in joules with power in watts. Now test yourself. Answer in your head before the reveal. That is how G-speed is built. Here we go. Question 1. The work done by a force, Fd cosine theta. Question 2. The kinetic energy, 1/2 mv squared. Question 3. The potential energy near the Earth, mgh. Question 4. The work energy theorem. Net work equals the change in kinetic energy. And question 5. Power, work over time, or force times velocity. Let us gather it all in one breath. Work equals Fd cosine theta. Kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared. Potential energy is mgh. The work energy theorem, net work, equals the change in kinetic energy. Energy is conserved with only conservative forces. Power equals work over time, and also force times velocity. Next class, rotational motion. Energy, traded and conserved. Work and energy are how physics keeps its accounts. Work is a force paid over a distance, and only the part of the force along the motion is spent. So W equals Fd cosine theta. A force at right angles does nothing at all. That work becomes energy. The kinetic energy of speed, 1/2 mv squared, and the potential energy of height, mgh. The work energy theorem says the net work is exactly the change in kinetic energy, and when only gravity and springs act, the total never changes. Potential falls as kinetic rises, and a ball at the top of a ramp arrives at the bottom having simply swapped one for the other. Power measures the pace of it all in watts. Next class, rotational motion. Sarah, David, Lisa, and John all began exactly where you are sitting now. One idea at a time, you will crack G. I will see you in the next class.